great. Hi, I'm Tumo Fangz Moremedi. I'm a musician, rapper, songwriter, I guess. I'm an artist, and I have a debate show, and I also coach debating, university level debating, high school debating over the past 10 years. That's one of my great loves. I love expression. What we always talk about with these things is you need to invest in education campaigns, right? Which I think is important. You can't ever stop spreading the message and letting people know, firstly, how stark the situation is in Botswana, right? I know I was shocked to find out that we've got the highest, and this is 2023 stats, we've got the highest rape incident rate per capita in the world, right? Which is nuts. It doesn't make sense that that's the society I grew up in and live in, right? So we can't stop letting people know that that is a real thing in Botswana. And we should be ashamed of that as a society, and we need to do something about it. And maybe if you let people know how bad the situation is, and you let people know what GBV looks like en masse to everybody, then you don't stop educating people about that. Similar like what we did with HIV/AIDS, then you might start seeing social change. But I also think you need to invest in empowering people socio-economically, right? People that are quite obviously disempowered, that you can see systemically fall through the cracks, whatever you want to call it, right? Where you can see people within our society that are clearly struggling, and we just kind of let it happen, right? Like, one thing that really shocks me or bothers me is how low the minimum wage is officially in this country. How you expect people to live that way. And when people are so vulnerable, then it's very easy, or it becomes easier to take advantage of them and their vulnerability. So the more empowered you make people, put them in a position to make their own decisions, to live in their own spaces, then maybe then you start having fewer people that are forced to be in situations where they can be victimized, right? So I think if we're talking about investing, we need to look at those two things, in my opinion. Yeah. You can't debate facts, right? So like the thing that I said earlier about Botswana having the worst rape incident rate per capita in the world, number one. You can't debate that. And funny, I was in a debate with somebody that infuriated me right, over that particular statistic not too long ago. I was shaking, right? It was absurd to me. Is that that there's the truth, it exists, and you can choose to accept it or not. That's entirely up to you. But what you can't deny is that it's the truth. Right? You can't have a discussion about whether or not it's the truth. It's the facts, right? So that's the first thing. But I think secondly, you need to have, there's certain things that you can have debates about, right? So you can discuss and debate about the best way, the best policies to help women or girls that are being taken advantage of in specific areas because it's rural or because of whatever else, right? You can discuss and debate different ways to try and get those people out of that situation, right? But what for me, there's two things. One, it doesn't make sense. You can't possibly debate whether or not it's right to get them out of that situation. And secondly, I think you have to be conscious of, this is a debate for if you're discussing policy. This is not a debate for if you're talking about society and you're trying to spread awareness about society. You can't debate things like that, because that's the truth. Once again, it's people trying to let you know what the situation is. And once you understand that, then you can have debates about the best solutions. Right? That makes sense. So I think sometimes, you're right to mention social media, because social media gets very toxic. I definitely started avoiding spaces like that, because it seems like people talk without thinking, and it almost feels like you're engaging with people that aren't, they wouldn't have this conversation with you in real life. They wouldn't say these things, and it feels like there's a cloak that they hide behind with social media, and they get to say and propagate some really horrible things. So I think it's really important for us, for people that want to make a difference, to be aware of spaces that make a difference, right? And concentrate your efforts there, lest you get demotivated or crushed or get caught up in these horribly negative spaces that exist online. I know I sound old, like, hey kid, get off my lawn, but I just feel that sometimes you need to know how to protect yourself, right? And if you know that there's certain spaces that don't necessarily enhance your experience in life, then try and limit your your exposure to them. I think that's it. So I said I run a debate show, right? My co-host and I, right, we've been debating issues like this and talking about issues like this and trying to discuss solutions about this and having conversations for years, for decades now, it feels like, right? But when we want to discuss women's specific issues, I remember we had years of like running our show where we felt uncomfortable. We would avoid discussing women issues because we didn't feel like we had a right to discuss them unless there was a woman present, right? Right. Yeah, that's the thing, right? So that's how it felt to us at the time. Is that like this it feels patronizing for us to discuss this issue without involving a woman in the discussion. And then over time, I think, particularly for me, it's my absolute love for expression that led me to a position where I felt like, well, this is an issue that I care about, and I have an opinion on it. I think it would add to the public discourse. I have a platform. I can use that platform to discuss an issue that I care about. And for me, honestly, it wasn't like that overpowered the sense that I'm a man, right? I didn't really consider it at that point. It was just about discussing these issues because it felt really necessary at the time. I remember Chief talking about we live in a country that's dealing with a pandemic of GBV, right? And like that really struck me at the time, right, on the show. So for me, it's only in retrospect when watching the episodes later on that if I see that like, oh, this is two chaps talking about what would normally be considered a women's issue, but we're just expressing ourselves about an issue that's really important in our society, right? So I think that's the key here, is that we need to not feel like we don't feel like we need permission for most things anyway, right? So we needn't feel like we need permission to talk about this this issue that we care about, because I definitely know there are many men that care about this issue. But you're right, it's rare for us to talk about it by ourselves, unless like you happen to be like me and be working in a field that pushes you in that direction, right? So I think to the fellas, all I would say is you don't need permission to talk about things that you care about. And I know that you care about a lot of these same GBV issues because they affect you as well, right? None of us want to see our moms get beaten, right? None of us want to see our sisters get beaten. None of us want to get beaten or raped or whatever it is, right? So we know and we care that it's happening. So let's talk about it. It's important, you know?